Hey, Richard Bryce here. Today, I want to help you to improve your one-handed backhand by explaining what the 5 most common mistakes are that players make to help you avoid making them. And I'm also going to throw in a bonus mistake that's going to be really important, so make sure you stick around until the end, because this might be something you're doing and it could be really holding you back. I hope you enjoy this video. If you do, it'd be great if you could leave me a thumbs up, and if you haven't already done so, it'd be awesome if you could subscribe to my channel. Mistake number 1 for the one-handed backhand is not preparing early enough. If you don't get prepared on time, if you don't get that racket back ready in time to start your swing so that you can meet the ball out in front, it is going to mess everything up. Timing and getting an early contact point, it's important on all of your shots. But on the forehand, you can use your wrist and you can kind of compensate. With the two-hander, you can compensate. On the slice backhand, there's things you can do. You can just flick your wrist and you can deal with this stuff. But on a single-hander, when you're trying to create topspin, it is almost impossible to do that. So preparing early is absolutely essential. I've created a video that's going to help you with it. I'll place the link down in the description so you can check it out. Mistake number 2 for the one-handed backhand is not getting set up in the right position. So this can mean a couple of things. It could mean you're a little bit too close to the ball, because you do want a certain amount of space so you can swing out to it and use efficient biomechanics. But because of the way this swing works, you can actually be fairly close and still get away with hitting a reasonable shot. Now, I don't recommend it, but what's more of a mistake for people is not moving forwards or backwards quickly enough and allowing the ball to drop into a more ideal contact position. The one-handed backhand is normally a lot trickier for people to hit the ball higher, and it's a little bit easier to hit it lower, but you've got to get down nice and low to it. So generally you want to try and get it in that nice, comfortable contact zone. And because those nasty opponents, they just hit the ball that they want to hit, you've got to get your body in the right position. So that might mean stepping in quickly, or it might mean moving backwards to get a more appropriate contact point. Look, the best players in the world, they could get the ball right up there, and they can hit a good quality backhand from up high, but it requires tremendous timing. It requires you to modify the backswing, or sorry, the racket drop a little bit. So instead of coming down into this slot position and going through there, it's going to be more there, and you really got to get that contact point out in front. So for most people, depending on your ability, you really want to focus on moving into the right position and not making that mistake. To help you with it, the forward movement is normally easy, but I've made a video that goes into detail about the movement for deep one-handed backhands, and hopefully that will really help you, so I'll place it in a link in the description. Mistake number 3 is going to be hitting the ball late. Like I said a moment ago, in mistake number 1 and kind of mistake number 2, on the one-handed backhand, timing is everything. You have got to meet that ball out in front, or it is not going to work. It just will not work, especially if you've got the modern style of backhand. An older style of backhand, it can be to the side, but if you're trying to work on your topspin backhand, which most people are, you have got to meet that ball out in front. We've got to get the racket drop into the slot position. We've got to use our full body driving through the foot, the hip, the torso as that racket drops, and turning our arm into a whip and basically whipping that racket through into the contact point. If you don't start your swing early enough, if you're hitting it late, you don't get time. You know, if I'm trying to do that and it's down there when I'm part way through my swing. Mistake number 3 is that timing. You've got to get that part right. Now, I've made a video that goes into detail about it and breaks down this biomechanical stuff. I'll place a link in the description so you can check that one out as well. And now we'll move on to mistake number 4. And mistake number 4 is going to be lifting your head and not watching the ball onto the strings at contact and maybe losing focus. The way that our bodies function, in order for us to do things accurately, we need to be looking at the thing that we're doing. It does not matter what it is. It's just the way our hand-to-eye coordination works. We've got to get our eyes pointing, or our eyeballs pointing at that contact point at the moment of contact. So it's a good idea to really keep your head still as you do that, a la Federer. You've got to make that part happen, because if you lift your head, it dramatically increases the likelihood that you're going to miss your shot. Sure, sometimes you'll make it, you know, actually then when I drop fed that, it hit a crack, it made a bad bounce. So I had to adjust my swing as I did it, even just with this simple drop feed. So you have to be watching the ball onto the strings. You have to be keeping your head still, because that allows your brain to create all the little adjustments that it needs to make. So that's mistake number 4, not watching the ball onto the strings and lifting your head. Mistake number 5 is going for way too much, and often that means going for ridiculous winners down the line when it is not the right choice to do so. Obviously you see it a lot of the time in the professional game. They're stretched out wide and they just rip that winner down the line. The crowd cheers, everyone goes mad, so we think that we should do it. And it's not that going down the line is wrong. It's definitely a very good strategy depending on your current ability level. It's something you want to employ, but you've just got to understand the court geometry that, going down the line, the net is higher and the length that you've got to hit with is shorter than going cross court. So it's always going to be a safer option to go back cross court, put a little bit of height on the ball. Potentially, if it's really wide, it might be a case of slicing the ball rather than using a single hand or trying to create topspin, but just not going for too much. You can potentially turn your backhand into a weapon. I don't know where you stand at the moment on this, kind of where things are, but often people's backhands isn't quite as strong and we get influenced by the best players in the world and go for shots that we shouldn't do. So just try to avoid mistake number 5, which is going for ridiculous winners down the line. You make 1 in 10, it feels so good, so you keep doing it and you keep missing it. Not a good plan. Try and stay sensible, go down the line at the appropriate time. And that brings us on to bonus mistakes. So mistake number 6, which is going to be tweaking and changing and tinkering with your technique and trying to adjust all these things when that isn't the thing that's causing you to miss your shots and causing you to kind of not be able to improve your backhand in the way that you want. Look, the things that I've just covered, shot selection's a little bit different, but it is important. If you're going for ridiculous shots, you've got to try and calm it down and go within your current ability level. But all of the other 4, they're the foundations of hitting a good quality one-handed backhand. If you don't get prepared early, everything else goes wrong. If you don't get in position, everything else after that is really tricky. Like I said, timing is everything. If you're not able to meet that ball out in front, that's something that you really have to fix. And if you're not watching the ball onto your strings and you're lifting your head, it's the #1 cause of missing shots. So I see people trying to modify their technique, and this even unfortunately comes from coaches as well. They're just working on the stuff that isn't really the problem. The only way to address any problem in life, and especially, well, in tennis, but any problem in life, is to address the underlying cause. Otherwise, it's just a band-aid solution. So hopefully, from seeing what these mistakes are, I've given you a few resources. You can go and check those out and start to kind of go and work through things. But something that I want to talk about briefly is that those 4 issues, there's something that really limits players on all of them, and that's how well the visual system is functioning. This is something that most people don't think about. We take our vision for granted, but everything that you do on court is based on how well you can see. So often when people aren't preparing early enough, it's not because they don't know that they're not supposed to prepare early enough. Coaches, every coach you ever hear says prepare in time. You know you're supposed to do it. But if you can't process that visual information quickly enough, it's hard to react fast enough and get back into position in time. When it comes to kind of the movement back, it's exactly the same thing. To move back quickly, you have to recognize that the ball is going to land deep. Otherwise, you can't do it. To get that timing, you have to be able to predict how fast the ball is coming and how far it is away, so you can start your swing at the right time, and so you can adjust the speed of your swing. And then, of course, watching the ball onto your strings, your ability to track the ball. You may or may not know if you've got timing issues. Some people know they find it hard to watch the ball, but it's just a thing that people run into. If your visual system isn't capable of doing these things, it doesn't matter what technical input someone gives you, you've got to address those things first. But the good news is, vision is very trainable. I've created something to try and help you with it. It's a masterclass where I'm going to break this stuff down into detail, so I'll kind of explain some of the common problems, but I'm going to talk about the different visual skills that you need in tennis. And I'm actually going to take you through 3 assessments so you can start to figure out if this is something that's creating you a problem, because if it is, obviously it's something that you've got to resolve to address all these kind of mistakes and issues. So I'll place a link for that one in the description as well. I'll also place a link up there so you can check that one out. But before I head off, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you make these mistakes? Have you been trying to fix them before? Are you able to kind of make the adjustments? Leave your comment down below. I love reading them, and I'll see you next time.